Hello BookTube, my name is Kate and this is my channel, Chapter Kate. So I created the Nsterathon tag last year to coincide with the Nsterathon readathon. And this is the Nsterathon tag 2020. If you're not participating in the Nsterathon, you are more than welcome to still do this tag because people still need monster book recommendations. Nsterathon this year has a subtitle and that is Where Monsters Hide, so all of the prompts are based on places that you will find monsters. And basically all it is taking the prompts from the readathon and the recommending books for those prompts. This way you get to talk about books that you've already read, but then people that are doing the readathon can get recommendations for the reading prompt. Tags are there just to recommend books in general. And so this tag is specifically about monsters. Or is specifically inspired by monsters. Some of your answers don't actually have to be monsters because there might be a lot of different types of books that qualify for the answers. With the Nsterathon, there are 3 teams, and for this tag there are going to be 3 categories. There are the beasts, the haunts, and the conspiracies. So the beasts are any monsters that have plant or animal-like qualities. The haunts are any monsters that are dead, so zombies, ghosts, vampires, demons. And then the conspiracies are anything else. Aliens, robots, mutants, that kind of stuff. Stuff that doesn't quite fit into the other categories. So under each category we have 4 prompts. And what I wanted to do is to try and match the books that I'm recommending for those prompts with the team that they are under. So the first team being the beasts, the 4 prompts, I wanted to pick books that not only answered the reading prompt but also have a creature that would be considered a beast. So the first prompt is Whispering Woods, and this is a book that I don't hear enough people talk about. And for this one I'm going to be going with The Assassination of Brangwain Spurge by M.T. Anderson and Eugene Yelchin. I think the only person that I've seen talk about this book besides me is Scott from Book Invasion, who I think did an actual review, like a full review on this book. The great thing about this book is that it's written, but there are also parts where there are illustrations. But there are 2 main characters and 2 points of view. Brangwain Spurge is an elfin emissary, I can't say that word, emissary, that is basically getting information and studying goblin culture, but actually he's a spy. But it's very interesting because it has the point of view of the goblin and then the point of view of the elf. And so anything you see from the goblin is very happy because this is his land, everything seems chill for him, but then everything you see from the point of view of the elf guy is like everything is terrifying and terrible and scary. And so it's very interesting to see the 2 points of view. And there are also these letters from the people from the elf's kingdom, I guess, that they're sending to him, you know, trying to get information and all this kind of stuff. And it's really funny and really cute and just, it's a fun book. And the next book is LAIR of the Babadook, and this is a book with LGBTQIA plus representation. And for this one, I'm going to go with this chunky boy, Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This book has dragons, okay? There are dragons. Dragons are so cool. But yes, there's a sapphic relationship in this. So there are 3 main female characters, but there's a ton of characters in general. Queen Sabran the Ninth is the queen of this realm, and basically they have decided that as long as there is an heir and that the line keeps going, then their kingdom is protected from this big bad dragon guy who's like asleep. He's a fire breather dragon. Apparently the fire breathing dragons are mean and the water breathing dragons are good and ethereal and all that good stuff. But yeah, Queen Sabran, the whole baby situation. And there's Iad, who's from outside the kingdom. She's risen to the position of lady-in-waiting for the queen, and she's basically secretly protecting the queen with forbidden magic, which is, she kind of gets from this orange tree. It's the whole thing. But Iad and Sabran kind of get close. They start getting closer and closer, and that causes some issues. But then there's also a character named Tene, and Tene is training to be a dragon rider, so she's riding the water dragons. However, there is sort of this battle between those people that, you know, ride the water dragons and this kingdom over here who fears dragons in general, even though there's 2 types of dragons. It's a whole thing. Overall, it's just really fun. There's a lot of heavy plot. It's cool. It's a great, really awesome, high fantasy book. Go for it. The next prompt is HYDRA'S Hangout, and this is a book based on some sort of mythology. And for this one, I'm going to be recommending Silver in the Wood by Emily Tesh. This book is based around the myth of the Green Man. So basically, green men are one with the forest. Like, they're like part of the forest, like legit. It's not just a green thumb, it's like everything. Everything is green. But this wild man in here named Tobias is part of the wood, and he, you know, follows the old ways, the old traditions, and he just lives alone in his house with his cat and his dryad friends. But the wood has this new owner named Silver. Henry Silver? What's his first name? Yeah, Henry Silver. He's the new owner of the wood, and some stuff happens, and they become acquainted, and then pretty close. And all this stuff, and some secrets get dug up, you know, about Tobias's past that he tries to keep hidden, and it's a whole thing. And it's great, and I loved it so much. And it's short, it's only like 110 pages, something like that. It's a novella, but just the writing is fascinating. It's very otherworldly. I want more Green Man books, okay? Give me what I want. If you know of any books that have Green Man mythology, please let me know. I want it. And then the last prompt for the beast is MAH SWAMP. And this is a book that you picked for the cover.
I like that boulder. That is a nice boulder.
And for this one, I wanted to pick a book that still had some sort of beast in it. And so I went with Seraphina and the Black Cloak. This is part of a middle grade series by Robert Beatty. This is set in the Biltmore Estate in North Carolina. It's about an hour and a half from here, maybe. I actually was engaged in the Biltmore Estate. It was a really awesome day. So I found this book though, and I thought it was just the prettiest thing. And so the main character, Seraphina, her dad actually works on the elevators in the Biltmore Estate. It's a big old house. He lives there and she secretly lives there too, but it's a secret. She likes to explore the estate, but she can't be seen. She's actually really good at not being seen. She's very small for her age, and she can see really well in the dark. But then something happens, and the children at the estate start going missing, and she wants to figure out what's going on. But in doing so, she finds out more about herself and about some hidden magics that she didn't know about before. So the beasts in this are catamounts, and catamounts are basically a legend of mountain lions that can turn into people, or just like wildcats in general that can turn into people. It's really cool. It's a really cool series. I really like it. And then the next category or team is the haunts. And this is any type of monster that's dead. So zombies, ghosts, vampires, demons, whatever. So the first prompt is Under the Bed. And this is a book by a Black or Indigenous author of color that you've been sleeping on. So I'm going to be recommending a book by an author that this was the first time I've ever read anything by them. This is the first work I'd read. And I was like, awesome. Now I want to read more from them. And this one is going to be Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This book is centered around a boy whose brother was killed. Brother was shot. And basically the rules of that community, the unspoken rules of that community, is that if someone takes someone from you, then you take someone back. You get that revenge on your own. So basically the boy in this book is getting ready to do that. He's got his gun, he's put it in his hoodie, he's gotten into the elevator, and he's going down. So this entire book takes place on that elevator ride. At each stop, someone steps onto the elevator who is dead. So they basically talk him through his thought process and what he's trying to, do. And it's really, really well written. As you can see, it's won a ton of awards, and it's definitely worth reading. So the next prompt is Secret Crypt, and this is a book that has some sort of mystery element or is a mystery in itself. And for this one, I'm going to be recommending Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. I can't say it. Grady Hendrix is a horror writer, but everything is kind of funny and satirical. It's like funny horror. It's the only way that it's palatable for me. But also this one is basically takes place in an IKEA knockoff store, so the book looks like an IKEA catalog. Like every chapter has like a nice piece of furniture with a made-up name and stuff like that, but those pieces of furniture become more and more foreboding throughout the book. The main character works in this IKEA knockoff store, but things start getting really weird there. Her and a couple of her co-workers get stuck in the store, and basically some just scary stuff goes down, okay? It's haunted, it's very unpleasant. It made me scared of IKEA. But the tone of like the physical book itself makes it not feel quite as scary, and that's what I liked about it. So like if you like horror books but you also kind of like things that are a little bit amusing, you might enjoy this. The next prompt is Your Friendly Neighbor's House. For the readathon, you're supposed to read a book that someone recommends to you, so someone picks a book for you. So for the tag, I'm going to be recommending a book that someone recommended to me. And for this one, I'm going to go with Death Troopers. This is a Star Wars novel by Joe Schreiber, and we own all of the Star Wars books from the extended universe. So this is all of the Star Wars novels that existed before the new trilogy happened. And then when the new trilogy happened, they decided that all of those books just they don't matter anymore. They don't matter. Psh, that's not canon. So they started over, which it's a whole thing. So that's frustrating. But Death Troopers is a novel about a specific ship where this kind of virus happens, and they're basically Death Trooper zombies. It's very sad. Part of it is very sad. It's also very scary. But if you like zombie outbreak stories, then you might like this book. My husband is way into zombies. I am not a huge fan of zombies or outbreak stories, but I did enjoy this because it had a lot of cool dynamics, like really close family dynamics, heart-wrenching events. It just had a lot of good aspects to it that I think if you like zombie literature or zombie movies or anything like that, I feel like you would still enjoy this, even if you're not a huge Star Wars fan. And if you are a huge Star Wars fan, of course you'll enjoy it because it's Star Wars. And then the last prompt for the haunts is a moment of peace, and this is a comfort read. For this one, I chose Frankenstein, who is kind of a zombie. He's a reanimated corpse. It's a whole thing. I don't reread a lot of books, but I have reread Frankenstein multiple times. I don't know why, because it's not like particularly riveting. It's very predictable. The main character is just such a whiny baby. Like, Victor Frankenstein is the worst. He's the worst. I hate him. But this book started monster literature. Like, this was the start of gothic monster literature. And so we have to commend Mary Shelley for doing that. And honestly, I don't think Frankenstein's monster would have been such a bad guy if Frankenstein, the dude, wasn't such a jerk. I have a lot of thoughts about him, but I like this book a lot because it's predictable and it's something that I liked when I read it, and so now if I reread it, it's a comfort read. And then the last category or team is the conspiracies, and again, this is like aliens, mutants, robots, things that don't quite fit into the other categories. And the first prompt is Area 51, and this is just to read a book that has aliens or mutants in it. And for this one, I'm going to be recommending The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This is a very Firefly-esque book. So if you liked Firefly the show, you probably would like this, in my opinion. It's just like a found family of different beings from different planets, and they all learn to live together. I think it's really interesting that the way that they deal with different cultures coming together as one, because they're not just like, hey, we're from different countries, but like they're completely different planets, completely different species. The way they communicate is completely different. The way that they view sex and gender and relationships and families is all very different, and it's very, very interesting to me. And the way that the characters on that ship are just completely like, okay, that's who you are, that's how you are, that's fine. And they just accept each other as is, and I just love that aspect. But there's a lot of different types of beings in here. Technically, they're all aliens because they're all from different planets, but there's also a clone in here, and there's AIs, there's all that good stuff. So I personally really, really enjoyed it. It's also super floppy. Like, this is a really floppy book. Then we have Rearview Mirror, and this is a book that was published more than 5 years ago, or an indie book. And for this one, I'm going to be recommending Sleeping Giants by Sylvan Newell. This is one of 3 books in the Themis Files trilogy. This is another alternative format kind of book, where it's all done in interviews and like personal logs and stuff like that. This is kind of a basic invasion story. At the start of the book, they discover like a big robotic, I think it's a foot is what they discover first. Either a foot or a hand. I can't remember, but they did, wait, maybe hand. It's a hand because the cover has a hand. So the main lady, as a child, she actually falls onto this big hand, and then as she grows up, she becomes like a doctor and studies this hand her whole life. And they want to know where it's from. Are there other parts to this body? If there's a hand, is there a foot? Is there whatever? And it's very interesting. And they're all interviewed by this one guy, and he's kind of nameless, and no one really knows like his whole deal, but he's interviewing everybody, and he like knows everything, and it's very cool. Like, I can't read this without picturing James Spader being the interview guy. I don't know why. He just feels like that. Like, he just knows everything. He's like his character in The Blacklist, you know? I don't know. I like it. They're robots. They're robots. And then we have The Upside Down, and this is reading a retelling. And for this one, I'm going to go with A Blade So Black. My reasoning for this is confusing. The reason I recommended this for conspiracies is because I don't really know how to classify it. This is a retelling of Alice in Wonderland. But the main character is kind of like Buffy, honestly. She's kind of like just this awesome, badass chick that's fighting these monsters. But like, she also has really cool like fighting skills. I'm not sure if they're supposed to be otherworldly or if maybe it's just like a destiny situation or what. It's really cool, and these monsters kind of feed on fear, which I think is interesting. I actually listened to this as an audiobook, and I feel like if I didn't, I would like it more. I didn't dislike this book, but it was kind of like, it was good, but it was just kind of okay for me. I think a lot of people would like it though. Like, I love retellings, and even though this doesn't really follow the same storyline as Alice in Wonderland, the fact that it involves all those elements of Alice in Wonderland, and it, does it for me. So I think a lot of people would really enjoy this, and I think I would like it even more if I read it physically rather than listening to it on audiobook. And there is a sequel now, which I can't remember what it's called. And then the last prompt for the conspiracies is The Bunker, and this is a book with disability or deaf representation. I specifically named this one The Bunker because I feel like bunkers are strong. And as someone with a chronic illness, I don't really feel like I should be anyone's, inspiration. If I inspire people, that's awesome, but I live for myself, before I can live for anyone else. I'm not here for like inspiration porn. I don't think anyone that has disability or who's deaf is you know, they don't exist to inspire other people. They exist to live for themselves. Anyone with a chronic illness or disability is very resilient. I feel that myself as someone with, you know, chronic mental illness, but I understand people with more physical illnesses as well. They have to be resilient to live their life. So that's why I made the bunker cover this specific representation. And for this one, I'm going to be going with Space Unicorn Blues by T.J. Barrie. So this book is weird. It's such a weird book. It's like a hot mess, but it's very serious about its hot mess. I love it. But it's kind of like a space fantasy, you know? There's like a misfit found family crew that is trying to just save basically magical creatures in space in general. There's Jenny Parada, who is a disabled Maori shuttle captain, and she's contracted to take this shipment to a summit. And so she hires this guy named Gary Cobalt, who's a half unicorn dude. He was basically charged with murdering his wife, but he just got released from prison. And so now he's part of this ragtag group along with this guy named Cowboy Jim. And they're basically just this weird group of people, or creatures, beings, and they're also magic's last hope in the universe. It's very weird. I remember enjoying it, but also being very confused. I wouldn't say it's like one of my favorite books, but I really did find some sort of joy in the weirdness of it. And that is all for my Nsterathon tag 2020. Please let me see your Nsterathon tags. You can do this before the Nsterathon, you can do this after the Nsterathon. I think this is a great way to give people recommendations for the Nsterathon challenges, but also a great way to give people recommendations for any October challenges that they might come across, or just if they want monster books. If you are participating in the Nsterathon, however, this actually gives you points towards a certain challenge, so you just might want to think about doing it. But again, you can do it at whatever time you want. Let me know if you're participating, if you've read any of these books, if you have any recommendations for the challenges. If you are participating in the Nsterathon, what team are you on? But thank you for watching this video, and if you would like more of this junk, please subscribe below. Bye!
Tripping over shadows and I'm drowning